Hey guys, welcome to Close of Business. Whew. It's February 25th,
Awesome.
2025. I'm RC.
I'm Juliana.
Howdy. So this is, I guess, the behind the scenes and the behind the scenes, right? So no formal hard newsman here.
This is us just, at the end of the day, we realize that we're having amazing conversations about things that
Yeah.
are happening and that we just needed to record it. So we were like, you know what, we're going to start doing Close of Business.
Yep.
And just have the conversation with you guys. So you can pipe in and, say anything that you want in the comments and whatnot. We'll try to keep tabs on things, but we're just going to have the conversation we would have had without you being here. So I've had Aiden since 4 o'clock on Sunday.
Yes.
A little bit out of the loop is the reason why we didn't go live yesterday. So I'm really excited about the updates that you have for us, and plus the video that you had me watch. We're going to go over that. So we've got a lot to talk about today, huh?
So for those who haven't joined us before, we decided that, when we close business, we basically talk about all the stuff that's going on. And so we're like, let's just let everybody hang out with us and get the insight. You guys wonder how we're able to talk about things and figure out where the puck is going and all that stuff. We figure we just pull you inside.
Well, I was tired of all this amazing, information that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And we weren't sharing it. And it's like, okay, so we'll write about it. And it's like, I just wish that we would have had the camera on us, right? Or at least the otter going or some kind of audio to dictate what it is that we've been talking about.
Yeah, because there's a lot of gold there. I mean, last night, we were tuckered. We had the baby, but we watched a documentary or an interview from Doug Casey's channel about what's going on with gold and why the gold's coming back in. We'll get to that a little bit later, but we had a conversation today with someone who's close to us where we were discussing this and ultimately what could happen. My concern remains the same about our friends who are retired or older about what that means, but we'll get to that. You want to show them?
Oh,
is it too early?
No, let's do it. Okay, so we are now sponsored and supported by Goldback.
Yeah.
So with Watchman Action, we're trying to figure out what the campaign's going to be, but we're giving away, where's this, a one gold back and then a half gold back?
Correct. The one gold back's worth about $6, and then the half gold back's worth about $3.
Like, how cool is that? So if the apocalypse happens and there was no electricity and, we were all like, oh, how are we going to be able to do some means of exchange? We now have gold back.
Yeah, we talked about that on the last Close of Business, is people who are stacking gold. That's great. Like, you want to do that. But the people who are preparing for bad things to happen haven't thought through how it's actually tangibly going to go when it happens.
Well, those of us that are thinking community,
right?
I'm not thinking me, Juliana, right? I'm thinking my community and what do we need to do if the apocalypse does happen? Right? How do we prepare as a people, not just as a person?
Yeah, and it's interesting, Jeremy Cardone and his team at Goldback have been so great about this. We had a great conversation with Jeremy. We called him after we had met him a couple of months back. We're like, hey, we get it, and we want this to be part of the Watchman Action ecosystem of tools and resources. He's like, great, what do you want us to do? And we said, well, look, let's just talk about it and let's give away free Goldbacks. He's like, great, well, let's support Watchman Action. And we said, absolutely. So, Goldback is putting their money where their mouth is, so to speak, in supporting us. But what's interesting, what a lot of people missed, if you have not seen the movie Homestead, you should certainly see it. It's now streaming on Angel Studios, is in theaters for a couple months. The Goldback is actually featured in both the movie, and they've done 2 episodes of the TV show that comes after, which is very cool.
Very cool.
So you get to see it in action in a scenario where it would be used. It was one of the accepted methods of payment.
So I remember, this is a throwback to 10 years ago. Do you remember when we had just started dating, you're standing in your kitchen and I was explaining to you about trade and barter.
Yes.
And how trade and barter is another form of currency, right? And all of a sudden, like 10 years later, now we get to talk about trade and barter. We get to talk about gold-backed currency, like a statewide. We get to talk about Goldback and having it like this. We talk about all the parallel economies and ways that we could be able to do exchange and whatnot. Like, wow, we've been talking about basically the parallel economy for 10 years.
With our crew 2 years ago, we did like 6 cities where we basically preached on the parallel economy.
And now look how important it is.
Yeah, I mean, that really kind of flows into what's happening, right? Slow news day. But if you've tracked the work that we do with Sherlock, our research and behavioral marketing business, we've been talking for the last year plus about the importance of a parallel economy,
Yep.
what's going to happen with the economy,
Yep.
irregardless of whether or not Trump is elected or not, which he ended up being. It doesn't matter.
Yep. It does not. As a matter of fact, you know what? The feedback we keep getting is that people have become lackadaisical.
Yeah.
Because Trump has gotten in.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, number one, if we had an opportunity, we should be jumping on and doing the things that we need to do, not throttling back. We should be throttling forward.
Exactly.
I just don't understand.
Well, this was the concern, is that, we've said this, we were on record with this. I mean, we were on election night for what, 7 hours?
Mm-hmm.
We did a live stream with our co-host on the TV show, The Culture Crossroads, Andrew Southwick. And then I think the week before that, we had done a presentation, or a couple of weeks before that, we had done a presentation, and we asked a question. Oh, we were down in Southwest Florida, the Rally for Our Lives. We said, what happens November 6th? Because that's when the real work begins.
That's exactly. But that's when people decided to sit on the laurels. Then they just did nothing. And it's like, well, how could you not take advantage of the situation?
There's a very small window. Look at the camera on this one. There is a very small window.
Yep.
Maybe you have 16 months left. Maybe. More realistically, you should plan for 9 to 12 to get anything meaningful done at the federal level, state level, even the local level. You've got to move and strike while the iron is hot.
Yep.
We had Bevelyn Beatty Williams on a couple weeks ago. She was a pro-lifer who got put in prison. We were her last interview before she went into prison, and she got a pardon from Trump. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we talked about with her is that we need to encourage, inspire, and keep the pro-lifers in focus and keep them motivated, because they need to be running for office.
So I got to tell you about my conversation with Ann today.
Oh, Ann who? Ann.
Should I say?
No, codename Ann. Go ahead.
Okay. Talking about what we want to do with the J6ers.
Ah, yes.
And how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend Ann, we'll just call her that for right now, is really connected with the J6ers. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we're pushing, the Watchman Action is pushing okay, you guys, the injustice was real. We all saw it happen. But now we want to mobilize you guys, right? Because who's going to disrespect what happened to the J6ers? We think that you guys should be running for different offices. Talk about having a massive campaign with them and the pro-lifers.
Right. So can I do something here for a second? Because I think it's important, because not everyone that knows us or watches us or consumes our content agrees that the J6ers should be out. So I want to do some clarifying here. You have to understand, if you don't already, that your government in large part is weaponized against you.
Everything.
Yeah, everything is weaponized against you. And whether or not you believe that J6 was an insurrection, which obviously it wasn't, that's silly. It's a protest, right? Because if it was an insurrection, they would have taken over the government.
Right.
Right? Okay. So if you go and look at what a lot of these people were, quote unquote, charged with, it's BS.
Right.
They were being politicized and basically held without due process. So it doesn't matter where you fall on the spectrum. The fact that someone doesn't get due process should upset you, right? The fact that these people, and same thing with the pro-lifers, like these people have gone bankrupt. A lot of them have lost everything because they stood for what they believed in. And it's important that people understand that, because when we say we're encouraging them to run for office and get involved, because they need to. They've been through an experience that most of us haven't been through. Right? And they know the cost. So do I want someone who's been through that, who has a moral compass? Absolutely. Just being honest.
Okay, so let's get into instead of teaching, because we're supposed to be having conversation.
Sorry, I had to do that one.
Sorry. Well, I had to bring up okay, anyway. You want to go to Catherine?
Yeah, so
I'm excited.
We're going to pull up a video here. This is Catherine Austin Fitz on with Maria Z. FASB 256. You guys need to just jot that one down. This is important. So I'm not going to ruin everything, but what Catherine Austin Fitts is about to talk about over the next 60 seconds or so is critical for you to understand. And this goes across administration because Biden didn't deal with it and Trump's not dealing with it. So let me do this. Let's go ahead and pull this up.
So before you get started, just so you guys know, RC sent this video to me and I watched it in its entirety today because I've been kind of like, taking care of Aiden. So I've been out of the loop as to what's going on. And there were so many nuggets in here that I was like, oh my gosh, point of concern, another point of concern. So we're just going to bring up one of the main point of concerns. Maybe we'll touch on a couple of other ones, but this video is really important for us to be watching.
Yeah, and Catherine Austin Fitts is one of the best at this.
She's phenomenal.
We're just going to let her roll. So I'm going to stop there because what she said at the end is what we've been getting at. Catherine Austin Fitts has been at this for years. Let me go ahead and this for a sec. So Catherine Austin Fitts has been at this for years, right? She was assistant HUD secretary in the 90s, and she uncovered this years ago. She said, hey, why are they keeping 2 sets of books? And this is FASB.
If a company 56. Did that, what the government would say to them, what the IRS would say to, like,
you're going to jail.
Being able to have, like, how I.
So what?
It's shocking.
It is, and what this video is worth watching. If you go to Rumble and you just search for Catherine Austin Fitts Maria Z, when she talks about this, basically what Catherine says is there's a $21 trillion deficit. She said if they stopped keeping 2 sets of books, you would find the other $21 trillion and it would balance out. The reason that's not happening is something that she's pointed out in prior interviews, is that for years, power brokers have been sucking all of the wealth out of the United States because they believe that it's over. They're like, it's game over. There's going to be a world reset and it's going to be a multipolar. Like you're going to have different players that are on equal footing, and the United States isn't going to be dominant anymore. So they're sucking all the resources.
So the multipolar meaning it's not just us that's dominating everything. There's going to be different sectors, because I think the United States has finally gotten to the point where they realize that they're not going to be able to overtake China the way they want to, and have dominance over Russia the way they want to.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've been playing a shell game with the dollar. Right. There was leverage when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, thanks to Henry Kissinger. Most people don't understand the story of how we even got there. That was a Kissinger creation. And by giving the Saudis protection, he said, look, you're going to take dollars for oil, and in exchange, we'll provide protection and keep the Middle East stable. Saudis did the deal because, I mean, it makes sense, right? And so the dollar is now dominant because you had to trade for oil. With BRICS doing what they're doing now, that's starting to change. So what is left, as we saw last night, and I think Catherine talks about this too, besides dollars, what does the U.S. actually produce? We've outsourced all of our production.
Right.
Thank you, Bill Clinton.
So is that why they're going now, drill, baby, drill, bring in the pipelines? We've got so many resources. I think they've been leaving the natural resources of America last.
Right, because there was an ongoing process. So people need to understand your last, 6, 7 presidents have basically been by design. And each one had a role in preparing the United States for destabilization. And by the time you got to Obama, his job was to get it to the point where it's ready for the knockout blow, and Hillary Clinton was supposed to be the kill shot.
Can you imagine?
I can. I mean, it would have been worse than any hell you can imagine.
the fact that they would let the woman take the fall of the United States of America, like, you know, that they're planning it and they've been scripting the whole thing, right? So many people already know, they've seen what it was supposed to be, and they were going to let a female take the head.
So, I mean, if you have a real conversation about who pulls the strings, because there's levels to this, and people out there, if you search for the different maps, you can see the power brokers and the levels. When you get beyond a certain level, gender, color, none of these things matter. You just need to be evil enough. And then you're given a responsibility. So your responsibility is to do this. Your responsibility is that. That is why some of the people you say, oh, I love XYZ, will only go so far. And then they won't go over that line. You're like, why won't they just do it? Because they're not supposed to. That's not their job.
The next person,
there's a responsibility there, right? Or, well, why are we doing this? Why is the U.S. weakened? On purpose. The U.S. is the last domino that needs to fall in order for a world governance system to work.
So there was a lot of crazy things that she said through the
interview. I mean, my goodness, I almost want to just like restream this separately and just do the whole thing as like a restream.
She goes against what we think of what's supposed to be normal. Everybody, what people are thinking right now is being the thing. She's like, no, that's not the thing. Like, basically, she's saying, y'all have been lied to.
Yeah.
The whole thing was, you think this thing over here, but it's really that thing over there. And she debunked everything. And I was just like, and all from an economical standpoint, all from a, like, you know, I'm showing you the evidence. Can't you just see what's going on? Everyone's just following along and not acknowledging, and they're just like glossing over and not seeing because the propaganda is not talking about it.
Well, that's the cognitive dissonance, right? If you've built your entire life on a failed system, which is what we're in, which is why we're seeing what we're seeing, it's like the Matrix. You're gonna die to protect that system because that's what you know. Your whole identity is mixed up. And I mean, Catherine Austin Fitts, they tried to poison her like 8 times, right? They tried to sue her. They took her technology. Catherine Austin Fitts had a solution for communities to know where the money was going. So that once you understood how the government was spending your money, you could stop them from doing it. She had created a technology that would have solved that problem. And you know what? The government sued her and they took it. And they locked it up to the point where it was no longer useful. To the point where she had to move. She spends more of her time out of the U.S. than in the U.S. Right? And if you listen to her, when she talks about it, she's like, I can't do it.
I guess that's why they call this the Great Awakening, because people are really waking up to how everything in our life has been weaponized, how we can see who the criminals are. These are criminals.
They are criminals. And
who's covering up for the criminals?
Right. But and if you take this in context, let's just be honest, this is biblical. Right. And if you're in that golden age camp, you're a believer, you need to take a real hard look at scripture.
What do you think about that goat that they had of Trump with the $100 bills or whatever way in Trump we trust and stuff like that? I was like, no.
Okay. So let's take a moment and do a PSA. If you haven't watched the original Matrix movie, you need to go back and watch it. And the reason that I say, and you guys hear us harp on this a lot, you need to watch Minority Report. You need to go back and watch all these movies again, because they're not movies. They're actually tutorials on what's coming. You have to understand that symbolism is a huge component in power. And you don't realize that you're a slave to symbolism. So when you hear terms like the golden age, just because you believe in what Trump's doing, and look, there's some great stuff that he's doing. We've always been consistent. We call balls and strikes. We're a research company. That's our job, right? But be very careful, especially from a biblical and scriptural standpoint, of deifying a man. Anyone, for that matter. Us, anybody, it doesn't matter. Don't do that, because when you do, you lose sight. And you're okay with terms like golden age. You don't even know what it means. I love you. I'm saying this out of love. Like, you don't know what that means.
I think people are detached from, like, we've been so removed from our history, because people think that the Bible is just a book. And in reality, it really is our history,
You've been put into a tribalism box and you don't realize it. And that can be incredibly dangerous because
they wiped out our history. They lied to us about so much. They distorted everything. And they're like, here, it's like, pin the tail on the donkey. They put the blindfold on you, right? And they spin you around. And then you try to figure out where the tail needs to go. And you have no idea.
Exactly. And it's like, if we had a little "you are here" graphic, we should probably create one and have it for the show. So we can just pop it up whenever, right? Like, hey, here, you are here, right? It's not good. People need to be aware of that. And you want to win so bad, because if you think about it, I've been through so much. I had to deal with 4 years of Joe Biden and all of this foolishness. I just want to win. I want to be a winner. Like, I've been losing, but so then there's the cost.
And are you really winning? Like, is what you're getting going to get you what you think you're going to get? Because in reality, what I'm seeing is that more people are wanting things that it's not going to lead to the end result of what they're looking for, but they think that it's going to, because that's what propaganda tells them to believe.
Right.
Watching people be so not understanding what reality is, and everything is so distorted.
So can I do a quick analogy? And I promise we'll move to the next thing. If you've never watched an episode of The Twilight Zone, you're not a fan of the show, I encourage you to watch one episode. It is entitled Eye of the Beholder. And this is the correlation. That entire show is done in silhouette, except for the main character, who's a woman who is attractive. Okay. And she's being told she's ugly and all these things, and she's got to be sent to a camp and everything. And you're trying to figure out what's going on here. And then when they put the lights on everybody else, they're all ugly, as we would see them. And the beautiful people are sent away. And the ugly people run the world. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. That's the lesson in the episode. And so you have to be very careful, because you could very well be that attractive woman in this situation, not being able to see what's real and what's not. You have to be very conscious of that. So, but dovetailing on that, right? Our friend Michael O'Fallon from Sovereign Nations, let me bring this up. So Michael O'Fallon and his team at Sovereign Nations, if you follow our research, we give you a decent amount of heft. Michael and his team go way down the rabbit hole, which we love. We spent time with him 2 years ago, and he spent an hour explaining China and global control to us. And we were just like, whoa, we need to do a series, which we're working on doing. But what we wanted to share with you is Michael O'Fallon was commentating on the singularity. And let me see if I can get this to a bigger size. I don't want to kill what he's doing. So Michael O'Fallon was responding to Elon Musk's comments on, hey, we're close to the singularity, which is something you don't want. Okay. And what he points out is that the goal of the progressive left is the singularity. So why would someone who is supposedly on the side of freedom want something like the singularity? So let's listen to the father of propaganda and lies, Uncle Klaus Schwab. Okay, so here we go. It is you that will change. Where's Alex Newman when we need him, right?
Daniel said the mixing, he saw in the dream, the mixing of clay and iron.
Right.
Like, we're listening to it, and I was like, are we not hearing, what our forefathers told us? Like, our Bible tells us this was going to happen here. He's telling us what he's going to do. Right. And so at the end of this post, it says, transgender equals transhuman. Like, they've been. He said that? This is what Michael O'Fallon had shared in Resist CBDC.
had said this too, right? So transgender is directly a correlation to transhuman. It's a singularity. If you can make people androgynous, which was part of the larger plan. Okay, we're not going to go all the way down the rabbit hole. Let's close the business. But understanding that statement, Klaus Schwab is telling you exactly how it's going to go.
So it's in direct violation of everything Father says is true.
And so Michael O'Fallon's frustration, and I'll go back to his tweet, right? So basically what he's saying here, the goal of the progressive left.
Can you make the screen bigger?
So it's full size on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There you go.
So basically he's saying the goal of the progressive left and men like Klaus Schwab and Yuval Noah Harari is the singularity. Mm-hmm. Why would that come out of Elon Musk's mouth? That's the point. He's like, here's what you're buying. If that's what you're buying, why would you even do that?
Is it that people don't know? Are they ignorant? Because I mean, are we not screaming from the rooftops loud enough? I mean,
so I had a conversation Sunday with another one of our associates, and that'll come up later. But we were talking about this, and people want to win so badly that they're willing just to do whatever it takes. And
to overlook what they see with their own eyes?
It is okay because, and that's this is what we warned about. You can't do that. You got to call balls and strikes, because if not, you can be taken advantage of.
You know, somebody once said to me, "Oh, you're on the right. You're on the right." And I'm like, "No, I'm on the side of truth. I don't care whose side it is." Right? As forensic strategists and researchers, like, I just give me the forensic points, right? That's it. I'm not bastardizing that, because I'm not. The 11th commandment, according to Juliana, is don't fool it thyself. Don't lie to yourself. And they're sitting there going, just lie to yourself. Just like calculate.
It's okay.
That they're right. And it's like, no, you're wrong.
Meanwhile, you see things like this. Elon Musk makes the statement on Twitter, so it's in writing. We're so close to the singularity, and people are rooting for it.
Because they don't understand. They've got to not understand. I mean, there's no way.
So, okay, I'm with you. But then you asked a really hard question. How long do people get a pass? Okay, you don't understand it.
That's true.
But there's
the dissonance. How long do you want to have what's going on around you?
It is the logic of someone who continuously says, explain it to me like I'm a fifth grader. No, learn. Because you're not a fifth grader. If you're a fifth grader, I explain it to you like that. You're only going to get away with that for so long before you actually have to do some work to get it. And if not, that freight train's going to hit you.
Okay, so this is how I feel, right? So this is all like live, right? We're just having a conversation. Ready? Wheat and tares, number one. That's number real. Two, even Father said, leave them be to their delusion and go take care of what it is that you need to be taken care of. And those that believe as you do, right? The wheat, you take them and go, okay, what are we doing? Right? Because it doesn't take, I always talk about the 10 block radius, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't take everybody in the 10 block radius and make sure that the 10 block radius is okay.
It's true.
It just takes enough people to go, I'm awake and I see what's going on. So let's be true about what we need to do next, because when all the dum-dums finally go, oh, Armageddon's here, right? That, you know, those of us that are awake have a plan, because people need to have a plan. And right now, most people have no plan.
And they are okay in their delusion. You know, what happens? All this gold's coming back in the US. What happens if the price of, if gold is repriced? People are going to get wiped out. That's for another episode. But it's real, right? You don't start thinking about these things until it's too late. And most people are so caught off guard because they've handed over the responsibility to someone else. They just don't see it's coming. Okay. We got one more on the big board here that I want to go to. And this is today.
Okay.
So housing market. Now, let me take a step back just real quick. Economically, we've talked for the last 2 years about what happens when all of the sectors of the economy get pulled down at the same time. Mm-hmm. And what we're starting to see now, which is what we've said for the last year, is it doesn't matter who wins. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, if Trump wins, it's going to be even bumpier. is that the economy is going to go through a really rough period because there's a lot of, it's like you being sick and having to get it all out.
Right.
We're in that phase, but we're also at the end of a turning, an 80-year cycle where huge changes take place. Okay. Mm-hmm. We are overdue for an economic reset.
Uh-oh.
And part of that, right, because you've got finance, you've got this, but you've also got the housing market, right? I'll make this even bigger. There we go. So one of the things that came out over the last 24 hours, and I just picked one of the tweets here, is that the FHA, where most people get their loans from, because you only have to put a certain percent down, and there's all these incentives to try to get you to the point where you can buy a house, right? What we found out is that the FHA has been carrying people on their mortgages who can't really afford them.
Does that go back to 2008 then?
I was just about to say, if this sounds familiar to you, this is where we were when we were leading up to the housing crisis.
So is there a way of being able to just bleed us? They do things that just are not going to be a win for us so that we can just cripple?
So let's be honest, and you guys can read this text yourself. Like, we'll leave it up as we're talking for a minute. Anytime that you see a function like this, so the Biden administration paid servicers to help delinquent borrowers by covering missed payments, slashing their monthly bills, and rolling it all to a bigger mortgage with no interest. So they just kick the can down the road. Anytime you see something
to make sure that the bankers got paid?
Yes, that's what I was going to say, is that there's an extraction mission going on. People are trying to pull out. This goes back to what Catherine Austin Fitts has said, is that they're pulling out as much wealth and value as they possibly can. They need to drain it dry.
So they've created the systems to be able to make sure that there's winners and losers. So they're paying the mortgages of people that should have had the mortgage to begin with to make sure their buddies are getting paid.
And rolling it all into a bigger mortgage with no interest. Now, and this happened in the last housing crisis, then they packaged them up into loans, derivatives, and then they sold the bad debt to people saying, oh, no, this is grade A. And it was like F. And then when the music stopped and there were no chairs left, everything imploded. So
how long do you think this is going to take?
It's hard to tell. I think that there's still a couple of months here before things start to get nastier, but this is going to be years of shaking out. I think what you're going to see, and there's a consensus on this, is that housing prices should be about half of what they are right now. That's how much it's inflating.
Half?
Yeah. That's how much scamming and stuff is going on, right? That's how screwed up our financial system is, which is why Trump is kind of in a pickle about what he's going to do. He's got to do something. We can't keep going like this. It won't work. People say, oh, we can just print more money, until people don't want it.
Right now, we're in the middle of a big chess play because it's like, what's going to happen with Brex? Who's going to do what? What's going to happen with the dollar, XRP, gold back? Like, there's so much, like, anything could happen.
Right. And so I want to remind people again that we're at the end of a turning, an 80-year cycle where major changes take place. Klaus Schwab has talked about this. Yuval Noah Harari has talked about this. Many people have talked about that 2024 and into now is the end of an 80-year cycle. We are due for these things because every 80 years something like this happens. Last time it happened, there was a giant industrial revolution, right? So we're due. What's it going to be? Now, the difference is that this 80 years has been prosperous. Most folks who are considered boomers haven't known any real down cycle. Like they say, oh, well, the 80s and this happened.
They've been propping it up in a way that they shouldn't have been.
Correct.
Stealing from the future. So the ouchie that they would have gone through became 10 times worse because they kept kicking the can down the road.
Correct. So it's like we know Social Security is going to go belly up. Right? Most of these programs are just full of IOUs. People are like, oh, well, they're going to audit Fort Knox. Okay. And I was explaining this morning when I was at the gym to someone who just didn't get it. I said, you don't realize. It's like you have to realize there's no gold in Fort Knox. Here's the kicker. In the movie Die Hard with a Vengeance, Samuel L. Jackson was Bruce Willis in there. Bruce Willis tells you, because these guys went to New York and they basically blew up downtown because all the gold was under the Fed. in New York. And he's like, there's no gold in Fort Knox. It's all here. They told you where the gold is. Oh, okay. You think this is entertainment, but it's real life because these people have to tell you it's a very sick system. All of this is a scam. Let's just be honest.
Right, so
it's all fake.
Is a scam.
So security's a scam. The economy is inflated. Most of these companies are worthless. The dollar's worthless.
Backed by nothing.
Backed by nothing. Eventually, it has to implode. If you are continuously ill, you're eventually going to die.
So remember when we had the lab and I was showing the kids the videos on Venezuela,
right?
And they were like, "Oh, that looks like America today." Exactly. And that's why you're watching these things. And now here we are, 4 or 5 years later?
Yeah.
And we're watching like, oh my word.
So it's hard to get your head around the fact that so much of this is fake because so many people are so hopelessly tied to the system that they'll fight and die for, right? Yeah. That doesn't take away from the fact that it's real.
All right. So what else? Is there anything else that we want to cover?
That's all.
After this is it. I'm making dinner. We're sitting down. I don't hear nothing about nothing.
That's all I had on my list, boss.
It's 8 o'clock. All right.
So I think that's a wrap for Close the Business.
That's a wrap.
Yeah. Guys, thank you for joining us. Anything you want to find, all the links for us and everything, watchmanaction.org. Go to watchmanaction.org now. Get your free gold. We're giving away free half goldbacks with our partners at Goldback.
We're going to be in Sarasota.
Yes. So we will be doing a Watchman Action training in Venice on the evening of March 7th. That's a Friday night. Mm-hmm. Details forthcoming. If you're interested, you can go to the site, fill out the form. Hey, I want to go to the training. Great. Get your free gold back. We'll have gold backs with us when we go down. And if you're interested in picking them up, we can help you with that too.
Excellent.
Time for dinner.
I'm very excited. Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm very excited about dinner, but I'm also really excited about having the Watchman Action workbook.
Yes.
Done. So, we're going to do videos so that everything can be online. Yeah.
So if you guys want to see a sample of it, if you go to watchmanaction.org and you click on training, you will see a sample of the workbook. Yep. And you'll actually see Juliana and I teaching one of the modules at a high level, right? So it gives you an idea of what you get with the Watchman Action training.
So it's just one of those, we were just trying it out, trying to see, going, you know what, let's just do some training, see what it looks like. But we're going to do a professional series. And
yeah, we got a lot of work to do. But the good news is that you can see what it looks like.
So excited.
Yes.
Very excited.
All right, you guys, thank you for joining us on Close the Business. We love you. We'll see you soon. Bye.